Okay, we've got a request here. Request for help on the final project. I tried to make a gallery grid style to present my work for the final. And it looks fine when I'm in the editor view, but when I try to get into the link to embed, the display looks different. Everything's unorderly, not arranged the way it looks in the editor view. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. Okay, so let's take a look at this pen. I see here. Here's a grid, and it's already starting to. Um, this is probably how it's supposed to show up, and the issue is, of course, the web. Um, from the viewport to devices to screen sizes to monitor sizes, there's so many things that are going to influence our layout, and our design has to um, be prepared for that and account for all of these things. Um, and in this level one class, we don't unpack all of the techniques and all of the tools that are available to us, but certainly for something like this, a grid, there are a number of principles that will be useful. Let's take a look at this code and see how this grid's being made and see what we can do to um, refine the approach so that we can have some more consistent results. First thing I see in the code is that, for instance, these double quotes right here. Probably what's happening is CodePen is trying to help, but the designer, as they're coding, is not realizing CodePen trying to help, and then stuff like this happens. But you can see a double quote starts causing some problems in the rest of the code. Here's another one. Double instance of a double quote. So stuff like that. Just want to make sure that things are clean. Here's this line. That's this HR, and then a break, line break. Afterwards, here we go. Here's the grid. Div class grid. The grid itself, the CSS class calls for padding left of 40 pixels. Okay. Div class grid. Inside this div is the image, first image, second image. Okay, and then the grid ends right here. So there's a div controlling the appearance of these two images, but then that control is relinquished, and we come to section style, position absolute, top. Okay. Div text, div section. All right. So you can see here that the one reason why this text and these images are not paying any attention to each other is because in the code, they're being placed in containers, in tags that aren't paying attention to each other. That's the simple answer to why this layout is not organized. So let's explore some code that will apply some organization. Really, that's all we're going to do is try some code that is trying to organize images and text together. I'm going to fork this pen so that I can start doing some updates in it. Let's see, we'll call it a debug. Very nice photos, by the way. Okay, so let's find that HR. Here it is. Here's the line break that follows it. I'm going to create a new structure. Right here, this whole grid is a structure in the layout, grid pattern. I'm just going to create one above it, a new structure that's going to propose a different way of doing this grid. Okay, so section tag is being used here to width 25. Okay, so I'm not going to use the section tag. I'm going to use a div tag. So I'm going to create a new structure, and I'm going to call it the new grid, just so we know what's going on. In this new grid div, I will create a number of other divs. Just 3 for now. And I'm going to, excuse me, give this a class of new grid item. I'm doing this mainly for this demonstration, so I can call things new grid or new grid item, and you'll know what I'm talking about. So I've got these 3 items here. I'll just put something in it for now. A, B, C. So here is my new content in my new grid. It's going top to bottom, which is the way divs normally should go. I want it to go left to right. I want these 3 new grid items to go left to right in the same way that this grid builds its content left to right and then rolls over to the next row. To do this, I'm going to go to this new grid element. I'll add a style so I can add some CSS. And I'm going to use a special display mode, which we don't learn until the next class, the next course. Display is flex. This is a different display mode that helps me build grids that look like what is happening in this layout. So look what happens to the ABC. They now start going left to right. And then I'm going to say flex direction row. Flex, well, let me do this. I'll just one by one, just so we can see this thing emerging. I'll set my class new grid item. Let's give it a background color of pink, just so we can see it. Now those guys are pink. Let's set a width of 33%. Now look at this, they're bigger. Maybe I set it less than 33%. Set 30%, so that it's smaller. But I give it a margin of 1%. See what's happening here? And let's set a height of 260 pixels. Okay, so these boxes are starting to happen. This text is only showing up here. It's not because it has anything to do with this pink box. See, it's because if we go look at this, here's the text. Todavía recuerdo el calor de tu aire. Position absolute is the reason why this text is showing up here no matter what. Position absolute, interesting solution, but it means that there's going to be a fixed location for this element, and that's one reason why it doesn't move when the rest of the layout moves. So at this point, I'm going to do the following. I'm going to hide this, hide the original. Go all the way to the bottom. Let's leave the footer. Okay, so now we're building a new grid, and we can see how this structure is going to hold our content. And hopefully, Tanya, if you're watching, you're excited, because watch what happens when I simply add another 3 items. A, B, C. Let's change this D, E, F. Okay. My flex box is just starting to put more of these divs in. And now I've got 6 across. The design calls for 3. So I can go up into New Grid and add specification of flex wrap. And now I've got 3 across. Flex wrap simply says, let all the contents inside this flex box wrap. And now it starts wrapping when it gets to 3. Why? Because new grid item is set, each item is set to have a width of 30%. All right, so how many did we have? We had many. I'll just add 2 more of these. Here we go. Now, this arrangement of panels, these pink elements here in the visual, are the divs. So they're basically content panels in this new grid element. They are orderly. They are behaving. And it doesn't matter what width this design is presented in, what kind of viewport, what kind of device. The Flexbox is going to enforce 3 items across, and then this kind of arrangement in relationship with each other. There are, of course, some other things that we might want to control here, but this is a much better solution than what's going on down here. So let's grab this first image and place it. Let's see what it looks like. I'm going to grab this, copy it, go into A, paste it. Here it is. Class photo on this image is creating this width 400, height 260, margin 10. That's what all this is. And when we're using this Flexbox, display flex, we actually don't need that so much. So maybe what I'll do is I'll take out this class photo so that it's that size. And then here on the image, I'll set a style of width is 100%. What happens is the image becomes 100% of the container that it's in, which is this new grid item. And the reason why I'm going to do this right now is because if I let the new grid item define the size of this element, and I make the image fit the size of this element, look what happens to the image as I change the size of the view. It's just going to scale. So let's get my second. Here's the second one. Here's the second image. Let's put the second one in. Same thing. I'm going to take out the class. I'm going to add a style that sets the width to be 100%. So I've rebuilt these 2 images. They're this size in relation to each other. And let's see, now we have this text. Here's the text. It's in a div with a whole bunch of styling on it. So I will copy this whole, thing. And let's put that in C. Okay. We might not need this line break here. In fact, let me take this out, see what it looks like when we just do this. So now we have these two images and this text in relation with each other. If I go down to my new grid items and I take out the background color of pink and I take out the height of 260 pixels, but I leave the width and the margin, look what's happening here. This layout is going to be a lot more organized and a lot more disciplined. Let's build the second row. Here's an image. I'll put this in D. Let's see what's next. Then there's this text. We'll put this in E. What's next? An image. Put this in F. Remember, for the images, I'm taking out this class assignment to class photo, and I'm adding a style of width is 100%. This image here has a float on it, float right, and a margin. That must have been to try to set some kind of spatial arrangement with the text next to it. We're not going to use that. We don't need to, because we have the Flexbox doing it all for us. So check it out. Here's 2 rows, and look how orderly all this is now. So we're using the display flex property on the container for this whole thing to make it so we don't have to code all these little exceptions every step of the way. Every time we code an exception in a specific spot, we're gonna create more work for us, or more things for us to think about when it comes to making sure this design is going to look the way we want it in various viewing settings. So hopefully this is a good, seeing 2 rows now, it's a good demonstration of where we're headed. I'm not going to do these other 2 or 3 or however many more there are. Tanya, if you like this solution, you can adopt it and set up the rest of your images in this grid. I think it solves all the problems you're mentioning in your question. Other issues come up that you didn't mention in your question, such as like the centering of this text. If you want this centered, that's like another piece. But if you just get to this point and you implement this solution, you have a really nice page. And the issue of whether this is starting at the top or whether there's a little space becomes, sort of a secondary thing. So I think I'll leave this at that. I'm gonna save this. Oops. Did I save it already? Yeah, I guess I did. So that we have a link. I'll show this link. And yeah, this is my suggestion. Use Flexbox I might have shown this casually in a demo, and not formally as part of an assignment in this class. So you might not be aware of it, and that might be the reason why you did not use it. So, but now you know. Here's a great solution.